What's up guys, it's National Master Dem Apples back again with another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to memorize openings. So opening memorization is key, but knowing how to do it efficiently is the hard part. So my first tip is to memorize ideas, not moves. That makes the memorization part way easier. So let's give this example. I have this really long line in the Italian, and let's see if we can identify any ideas. Black goes a6. What do we do here? Well, usually you're trying to find out your opponent's idea, and here black wants to play pawn to b5, attacking our bishop. So a logical response is pawn to a4. Now, we could have memorized this move, but that would have taken effort. And so a general guideline is when they go a6, preparing b5, you want to stop them from playing b5 with pawn to a4. This works for pretty much any Italian position. Fast forward a few moves, and you'll see white go h3. Well, why does white play h3? To prevent bishop g4. So when you have nothing to do, h3 is probably a good move as well. h6, again, ideas. Usually in the Italian, and of course this is specific to every opening you play, but you're going to have to realize the ideas, right? These two squares are critical, because they're light squares. It doesn't seem like black has good defense. So usually white wants to make this knight maneuver to e3 or to g3. On e3 it controls f5, and on e3 it controls f5 and d5, and on g3 it controls f5. So this knight maneuver here or here is really common. So we continue a bit. Exchanges, whatever. Again, some of these things you don't need to memorize. White's just trying to connect rooks here and develop. And yeah, knight to f1, white's going for this maneuver. You don't have to particularly memorize this move, but it's good to know the idea so that you won't even need to memorize it. So here, and white gains more space, goes rook b1 because he's playing on the queen side. Arguably, we're out of the opening, but, you know, it's still somewhat memorization here. There are many games played from this position. But the key takeaway is to memorize the ideas. What were the ideas here? Well, first of all, playing a4 when your opponent goes a6. And the knight maneuver, right? Knight d2, knight f1, knight e3. This is something to keep in mind. And again, the long-term ideas, right? White's playing on the queen side, so he should be putting his pieces there. Hence, rook b1, pawn a4, pawn b4, pawn a5, right? You can see white bringing his pieces towards the queen side slowly. So, memorize the ideas, not the moves. The second tip I have is to play system openings. What are system openings? Well, they're just simply openings that you don't need to think about when you're playing. You're just trying to get a setup. For example, I'm going to show 4 system openings for white and 2 for black that you might like to play in the future. The first one is the London system, and again, yes, you'll have to know ideas and stuff, but this is the setup you want to play, and you just go with it. A lot of these setups you can also play with reverse colors, as I'll show later. With the London, you have some pressure here. Usually a knight on e5 is pretty nice. Sometimes you go attack on the queen side, you have some nice king side pressure. Usually you go h3 to drop your bishop back later. And those are some simple ideas on the London. The next system I have is the Zooker Tort system. I think this is better than the Kali system because you get slightly more activity. But yeah, Hikaru plays this a lot, and yeah, it's a pretty solid setup, and white has quite a bit of play here. Usually white goes for c4, but he can also expand in the center with pawn to e4. And he simply has a lot of activity pointing toward the king side with these two monstrous bishops. So white's doing pretty well here. Another system that is pretty common is the Ston Wall. This is very logical. I've used this as an example in a couple of my videos. But yeah, white just aims for this pawn structure, gets the bishop here, and just develops his pieces as normal. And the key takeaway here is usually white puts a knight on e5, goes pawn g5 to attack the king side, and also goes for a rook lift. Last one is what I call the best opening for 2024, and it's just the Bobin system. It's really simple. You just move your pieces into this configuration, and all you're trying to do is overwhelm your opponent with pawn pushes on the king side. It's pretty simple. And usually you go h3 and hide your king here before you do this. The two systems I have for black are pretty interesting as well. So here you have to know what to do against e4 and d4. So against e4, I like the Caro-Kann, but against d4, it's basically the Slav. After this, usually people go here. I mean, a lot of people can take, but it doesn't really change anything. You're getting the bishop to the square you want to anyways. Bishop f5. If you've noticed, this is kind of like a reverse London system. But black is really happy here. Very solid structure here. And yeah, technically white has a bad bishop because most of his pawns are on dark squares, as you can see, blocking the bishop. We have a good bishop, even though it looks like we have less space. The key ideas here are we have the good bishop, we castle, and we strike with the pawn to c5 and bring our rook to the c file. And playing against d4, again, this is just called the Slav. And the Slav is very, how would I put this? It's really tactical, but if you want a more boring version, you could also go for bishop f5 right here. You just have to be aware of this certain line, which can be pretty tricky, but you can do your own research on that. dc4 is what most people play, and after a4, bishop f5, you can see we get this bishop out here, we get this knight here, and our pawn is on c6, meaning that the structures and ideas are pretty similar. Black just tries to get a solid position and castles, but the game can get very tactical very quickly. Every once in a while, black tries to hang on to this pawn, and yeah, he just maintains really good control of the e4 square. And the last system probably fits most of you guys the best. This is the King's Indian, or the modern, or the Pirtz, whatever you'd like to call it. But against d4, this is called the King's Indian, and it's a really dynamic opening. Black's main idea here is pretty much like the Botvinnik system. If you look at it, you know, this is a pretty similar setup. All black's trying to do is move the knight somewhere. I like d7. h5 and e8 are both reasonable as well. And you just try to attack the king. I mean, you just go for the throat. It's a pretty fun opening. I've played it for a long time, and I've also played this system opening for a long time. It's pretty much the exact same moves, you know, and this is why system openings are so good. You just need to know where the pieces go. You don't need to memorize any lines. And after all this stuff, you know, black has similar ideas. He just wants to advance the pawn to e5. And yes, you could possibly go for a kingside attack, but the ideas here are a bit different. Usually black develops good queenside pressure, actually, because of this bishop on the long diagonal. Now, honestly, system openings work better for white because you get to make the first move and you get to set the tone of the game. System openings might not be as good when you're playing with black because your opponent gets the first move and you'll need to learn a bit more about your system. Again, this is very similar. You know, we fianchetto our bishop, we go d6, we move our knight out, we castle, but the structures are a bit different, starting with e4 and starting with d4. So that's just something to keep in mind right there. And lastly, if you think you're too good for all these system openings and you just want to learn something unique and special, I recommend Chessable because it's just got a really, really good training program. You just need to play a move and then make sure you memorizes it. You have to make it the move 3 times or something like that. You get quizzed every once in a while, and then make sure that you know the openings well. The downside to this is that usually you'll have to buy a course, but they have some free courses available to you as well. And I will be making a few opening courses on this website as well. Stay tuned for that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.